back to what we were doing earlier.
What we was
Can you
talking about
can you start
earlier.
off with your icebreaker again?
My icebreaker. Oh, my name, because you
Yeah.
was asking. So yeah, usually when I'm applying for a job, when I was gonna work in a real setting, my resume says Ada Pittman, but the paperwork says like my full name, and my full name, my first name is Ada Duval, my middle name is Siobhan, and my last name is Pittman Delancey. So they're looking at the information. They're like, oh, so what should we call you by? And like you can just call me Ada. I know it's a lot, to digest. I'm a tribute baby, and they're like, what does that mean? And so I just go into like my first name. I'm named after both of my great grandmothers, my paternal great grandmother, my maternal great grandmother, Siobhan. All of my siblings' middle names begin with the S. Pittman is my father's last name. Delancey is my father's mother's last name. She was adopted. She didn't have any brothers. She wanted Delancey to live on. She attached it to Pittman. And I have the longest name ever that doesn't fit on Scantrons. You can't write it on documents. It doesn't work. But it's a lovely name. Legacy. It kind of
It's
just happened.
automatic. I'm sorry.
It just played on accident.
Yes.
It just played on accident.
It really did.
It's okay. You got stuff from the other one.
I'm not very good at this, so when stuff like that happens, I have to like,
Cut and edit.
you know what I mean? Like I'm
can.
trying to figure out how to get back. You know what I'm saying? To where we were. And also,
Mhm.
I hate to keep doing it to you. To have to start over.
That's fine. My name is my name. That's an easy one.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
It's an
I'm
easy-
just explaining
it's
to you
easy.
why I was.
He trying to get it all in one take so he
You
can
can't
like
do it all in one take.
block.
Sometimes you're gonna have to edit.
He trying to
No, I
block.
get that I'm gonna have to edit, but I'm trying to be considerate for everybody's time too. You know what I'm saying? She can't be sitting here all night, so we gotta try our hardest.
I just got here. Just redo it.
All right,
I'm sorry.
ready? Set,
Yeah, I'm ready.
go.
I'm sorry. I'm good. I'm just laughing because you like we're trying to respect people. So I like you in your professional look. This is works for you.
Hey man, this is about efficiency.
And I ride with
Unless you want to be here all night, because we can. Be
I
here
live
all
here.
night.
That's
You wanna
what I
be here
told
all
you. I live here.
I just got here. You should
She
be
just got
sorry.
here. You talked about getting my roommate though, and she's upstairs, and she's gonna have to go to sleep.
night?
So,
Yeah. Okay, so.
so you might have wanted to get her before me, because that would have been.
That would be a smarter idea.
But it's
You
okay.
should-
We can do
Ah,
this.
yeah, let's do this. So
Icebreaker.
you did the icebreaker,
I
and
did.
I totally love the story because I'd like to know more about. Is that something that was that something that was new for your family, or did you guys, or was that like a tradition of
Nah.
naming the kids?
Yeah. So how I got my name really came from what I understand. My mother. My mother had me at 40, so I wasn't I wasn't a playing baby, right? Like that wasn't on for real. That wasn't on purpose for real. So she told my father they were gonna have me. Thank y'all for having me. And so my dad said he wanted to name me after like he wanted to name me, and so my mother gave him she granted him full reign on naming me. And he gave me both of my great grandmother's names, who were their grandmothers. But my dad and my mom were both raised by their grandmothers, their grandparents. So the significance to me, as I tell people, it's a lot of weight to be named after the people who reared your parents, right? It's like, yo, y'all really think highly of them. Or my dad at least thought really highly of them. And he gave me that as a first name. My mother named me Siobhan because, like I said, all of my siblings, our middle initials begin with S. And she didn't think I was going to like Ada Duval. Hence why some of my college friends called me Siobhan, because Ada Duval sounds like a real old lady's name, because it is. And then Pittman Delancey, it's my grandmother and my grandfather's last name. And so the significance of a name living on, right? I didn't understand it for real. Like then I was able to communicate the story to people. And as I got older, I really began to understand the significance of this woman deciding that she wanted to hyphenate her last name from my father to carry it on, because your name essentially is like your legacy. So I have a huge legacy in my name, and it's a lot. But I'm good. I think I'm doing all right.
So that's an important aspect of your identity, pretty much, because it's
One that I've embraced. I've embraced the name part of my identity. My identity as a the word identity is real nuanced and layered for me, right? So when I think about the name, it was a weight, and it was also it was a blessing and the curse, you know.
why was it a blessing and a curse?
Cause like I come from a lineage, island culture, and I love women. Like that's my life. I'm gonna live my life with a woman as a partner. I'm gonna grow and die with a woman. That's my hope, you know. And one in island, let me not say in island culture, as in this is right now, but historically, you like you gayness, lesbian, you don't want to talk, no, right? And then I wear men's clothing, right? Some people call that masculine expressive. I'm a lady, but I wear men's clothing, and so that expression and what that also means is kind of like a anchoring in your gayness, right? But that's not what you would carry on with a legacy, right? Or maybe you would, but for me, knowing island culture, also knowing American culture, which is black church, you know, Southern Baptist church, being a lesbian with the legacy that was given to me before I really even got a chance to know who I was. When I came into knowing who I was, it was a bit of a battle because you want to uphold um, the legacy in terms of what's been passed on to you, but the way I love doesn't align with what would continue legacy, you know, something like that. I absolutely could continue legacy, but not in the way of aligning or marrying a man and producing children for that Pittman Delancey to live on. That's not how my life's gonna look. Never. So, it's a little interesting, pretty interesting.
So to a degree, you're honest. You're kind of developing your own legacy now.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting to battle. I won't say battle, but to be aware of the term legacy, to be aware of namesake and the power that comes with that, and the hope that comes with that. Uh, you just hope that the hope people bestowed in you or that they placed on you, that you're living in a way that honors their name. You know, to me, it's important for me to honor the name that was given to me. My father passed when I was 7, so I think the conversations I would have with him now are absolutely like they're adult conversations. When you lose someone at 7, I wouldn't have no conversation about legacy with my dad and understanding the weight of name and generational passing on generations. You know, so yeah, it's a definitely an interesting time for me in adulthood, knowing that my father gave me these names and what it meant to him. Like I would want to hear him vocalize what that meant, and then I hope that the way and how I show up in my name is still honorable to the people that came before me, but also kind of honors what my dad was thinking when he was like, I'm gonna give you all of these people names. You know what I'm saying? Like, here you go. Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful, because now it's like your job is to figure out how to honor yourself but honor your family.
Absolutely. Honoring myself first, right? Because this is my life and you only get one, right? And there's still some value and some honor that comes in knowing that people came before you. You know, so you want to honor it. And ultimately, it's just about being upright in the name when it's spoken, not coming with this, you know, a covering of the face or a shaking of the head, or you want to keep the name nice. You know, you want to be pure. You want it to be in good light. You know, are you, one thing my dad used to say is like, you know, and Jay-Z, you know, my word and my balls, my word and my balls is all I have, right? And my dad used to say like my name, like your name is what people know you by. Your name can take you places that you don't even understand that you're going. The access that a name can give you, the opportunities that can be opened up, whether it's your name or you dropping a name, right? Like reference points, names are important in social dynamics, and so he gave me a lot of names, you know. And so I just hope that, you know, I'm always able to honor those in the way that the people that lived with them initially would see me now and be like, she's doing it her way, but you know, it's still a good look.
So, so that's important because a part of you honoring that name includes you being able to capture your history and
Yeah.
and embody the culture that
Yeah.
your history kind of relates to.
Absolutely, absolutely. You got to do it. You got to do it. I say do it for the culture, right? And the culture can be your family. It can be your intersections. Like, you know, I tell people, you know, I'm a black woman that loves women. I'm a Christian. I'm an independent. Like, categorically, I can pick a category, assign me, and you can get to know me in that category, right? That does not diminish any of my other parts. So yeah, having the ability to show up in your name or having your name. I lost my train of thought on that. What was your initial question?
Well, I mean,
Or what was your initial point of entry to this conversation?
well, because what I'm curious about is how do you plan on, you know, capturing the experiences that
Yeah.
you have so that you can create a body of knowledge and recorded history
Yeah.
that does, you know, that pays homage to that name and the situation.
You know, I get to pay homage to my name because, like in most families, when you are the person that loves other, or say when you're the person that has the friend, or when you're the person that's, you know, the person that's whispered about, and that might mean that you're the lesbian, that you're the gay one, that you may be trans. You know what I'm saying? It's funny to hear other people talk about their experiences in the lens of blackness, but like being able to honor my name means that in this time, in this generation, with my name, I am the Pittman Delancey lineage that lives freely, that honors myself and moves wholeheartedly towards everything that I desire for myself unapologetically. And I feel like that's the best way to honor the people I'm named after, the legacy that I'm attached to, is to like live out loud in whatever that means, and in my perspective on politics, in my position on love, in my position on education, and whatever it is, right? Just to honor my voice and recognize that, I got a voice, and I don't know if I'm gonna make history books, but the people who know Ada Duval, Siobhan Pittman Delancey in this lifetime, they're going to be able to say these are things that we know about her consistently. Like pull the thread through from maybe from childhood, teen years, you grow. But even in my teen years, I was about like purpose, like what are we doing? How are we helping each other? Like caring and carrying on, like goodness for those who come behind us. And so to me, that's legacy, a name, whatever. It's about how are you readying the road for the people that come behind you. And I know that I was blessed to be named after these women and to get the family name, and whatever as I continue to learn about them, because it's interesting at every phase of life. I'm 35 now. In my 20s, what I knew about Ada, my dad's grandmother, and what I knew about Duval, my mother's grandmother, I wasn't the same in my 20, but by 22, I could see some things that may have been a little more similar. And then as I grew in life, and now at 35, to be able to have the conversation with my mother and get her perspective on these people, like these names, the legacy of your family, your mannerism, things are passed on, and sometimes they rare in the person in the current space. And yeah, hopefully I am in this time that I'm living, am able to resemble them and show up authentically as me, and have others recognize that authenticity without question, right? To me, that's legacy. Like, yeah, that's her. Versus who was that? I mean, maybe she did that. She couldn't possibly. I want my legacy to be, and the legacy that I'm representing, like like that's how she would show up. Yep, that sounds like her. Nah, that she, and I think that's everybody tries to do that a little bit, and we falter along the way. Everything ain't up, right? But in general, that's what I want people to know about my family name, my family, me, and my current generation, and then any of my nieces and nephews that carry the name on, because I ain't birthing no baby, so my name, Pittman Delancey, for me, I have this life to live and this life to give, because I ain't birthing no babies. That's just what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So you talked a lot about music before,
Yeah.
and if you could kind of summarize yourself in a song,
So
because it seems like that
that's
plays
difficult.
a big role, or in
Summarize
a few,
myself.
or in like some verses that really describe you
Yeah.
and kind of where you are. You know what I mean? Because I know you have a
Oh man, because all you know is gonna happen is I'm gonna quote Jay-Z, because I just keep this man alive in my head every day. That's like consistent motivation. But it was I don't even know what was it. Beach Chair, I think. Beach Chair was that the Black Album? I don't remember, but he had a line. It was like, it say, "Ho, how'd you get so fly?" I said, "From not being afraid from falling to fall out the sky. My spirit, no, my body is my spirit is a shell." I can't remember the lyrics right now. Gosh, nonetheless, but I just want to go at life wholeheartedly. I want to run towards everything, right? Like, more recently, like he's a soundtrack for life. I got Jay-Z lines for every like major progression point in my life, from Reasonable Doubt to like 444, and even the Carter joint. But yeah, I'd say that with the life that I've lived and the rearing that I've had, it is important for me to be able to acquire and leave something. I feel like my father's. So my father, as I've said before, was a hustler. My father he went to the military, because in the time that he lived, you went to jail or you went to the military. So he went to Vietnam. He was actually, from what my mother would say, a damn good soldier. He would say he was a damn good soldier. He volunteered the first time. He actually went back to Vietnam. And his position with my mother was always like, if I'm not here, y'all will be good, because the military will take care of y'all. And that's the best decision I made for my family, right? Was to go into the military. And when he went in, he just had my mother and didn't even have my brother at that point in time. But, the notion that he would have something to leave, it wasn't his, he didn't establish it, but the fact that he gave his service to the military gave my mother the ability to receive her widow's pension. And his SSI and everything else. You know, I went to school. I had Chapter 32 benefits from the veteran department. I had a scholarship for the deceased and disabled veterans. I got a monthly stipend with those benefits. Like those, my father's service to the military really gave me, my sister, my mother, the ability to continue our life. She just bought a house. My mother's 76. My mother bought a house 2 years ago because she wanted to have something for us to come back to. It was about being able to like have something for the family and then leave something for the family. So even her in her 70s is still trying to leave something for us, you know, which is it says a lot, you know, families and legacy and passing on of wealth. The goal, from what I've been able to assess, is just to leave the people behind you better than you were, and that everlasting love and desire for understanding for the need to have in order to kind of level up, and then the commitment to creating something to pass on is I don't know if that's something that comes with having children that you just feel. And I'll take it away and say it doesn't have anything to do with children, because I definitely feel like my parents passed that on to me. So I ain't got no kids, but I don't have to birth no babies because I got 18 nieces and nephews. So that's why I ain't got to birth no babies. I got babies to borrow.
Babies to borrow.
Yeah, babies to borrow. Real life. But, you know, it is what it is. And a lot of girls, you know, so in the sense of passing on a name, if and should they get married, in traditional sense, that the name will fall, which is why I think, you know, historically men have been adamant about having sons to continue the legacy and the name. However it goes, in this life I got this time, so I'm gonna do with it what I can, you know, all the good I can, everywhere I can, as much as I can. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess my last question would be, what would be your ideal self immortalized in a portrait?
Oh man, right now I'd say it'd be on the shoulders of my mother and my father. Like there'd be some depiction of, I think, you know, if I were to make it common, it'd be a tree, right? And the limbs may have our names etched, right? And maybe I'm at the top of the tree currently. Maybe in, you know, portrait form, it would be hierarchical in the sense of a monarch, you know, but it would definitely be on the shoulders of others, and it would start with my mother and my father. But because I am named after my great grandmothers, I would absolutely have to add Ada and Duval in there, which means that I would have to add their counterparts. So it would be maybe a tree or a hierarchical structure with me and my parents' support, and lateral to my siblings and upward their children, because this is the time that I live in now. It'd probably be a family tree. As many of us together as possible. And that would not only represent me, it would just represent like my core. That's the foundation, you know. Sorry, excuse me.
So I noticed you had pictures of your mom and dad. Could you tell me a little bit about what you remember about when those pictures were taken and probably what they were doing? Would you mind showing them to?
Let's see. So my dad. This one, I don't know how old he was in this one. He might have been like in his 40s maybe. Roderick Stanley Pittman Delancey the first. They call him my twin. They say I look just like him, you know. There was this thing on Snapchat one time that made your face, like if you're a girl, it make you a man. I did a split screen on IG. Everybody was like, yo, that's your twin. My dad has really strong genes. We were living in Stone Mountain off South Harrison Road on that picture. So I was either in kindergarten, first or second grade. Probably I was Woodbridge, so probably kindergarten. That's what I remember about that photo. It was a old house, had a huge front yard, sat off the road, wooden panels and shit. But that house was filled with music. Like my dad, we got this. My mother currently has like this reel-to-reel sitting in her dining room, going into her living room. My dad was a big music dude, so I just remember music. I learned to skate in that house. That's where my family, from what I knew, it separated. You know, my mother and my father separated when I was 5, 6. So that absolutely had to be that time. Like, I remember my family being a whole family in that house. So my brothers, my sister, me. So 2 of my brothers, because my oldest brother, Brian, was in Miami. But, so I have 3 brothers, 1 sister. My oldest brother my father had before he married my mother. And then he had the 4 of us with her. And so I remember my brother Roderick, Aaron, Sean, and I growing up in that house with my mother and my father. So that's what I remember about that picture. And then my mother, I don't remember nothing about this picture. This is my mother. I think I'd have to look at the back of it. I think she was like 18 months or something. But I just like it because she got the hard bottom shoes on, you know, the throwback hard bottom shoes. And yeah, she got I like it because of the hard bottom throwback shoes, and her little dress, and the fact that it's black and white, right? Like, it's pretty dope. I don't have a lot of pictures of my mother as a child, but I think that one, I think another one where she was like in elementary school, then it kind of progresses to her college years. And then her as a mother is kind of how I've been able to capture or see my mother on film. And that's also interesting now, because at 35, having conversations about my mother as a 35-year-old, those are the conversations that I'm getting to have with my mother now. Like, my mother used to be a mother, right? And with identifying someone as a mother, that kind of comes this superhero-dom, this notion that they're not real people, you know. So now at 35, I get to have real conversations with my mom about, like, at 35, she had 3 kids, you know, 2 kids and 1 on the way, I think. What? I ain't got no kids. I'm selfish. Call me what you want. Like, but what does a 35-year-old housewife with a military husband, 2 kids and 1 on the way, like, who were you? Because I knew my mom when I really began to see my mom as a person, I was probably like 5 or 6. So 45-year-old woman is who I met my mother. She had me at 40. There were a whole other dates before I was born. So I appreciate growing and being able to think about her in portraits and see her in specific snapshots in her life, and have conversations with her about what was happening around that time. So one thing I definitely look forward to is getting more photos, because when my grandfather passed a few years ago, I know that there are more photos that he had, you know, that she's unearthed, that aunts have pulled together. Like, photos bring all of the stories, all of the memories flooding back in ways that when I look at a picture, I'm 35, my mother is 76. We've lived 76 years. Like, in the snapshot of history, the things that she's seen, right? Like, first Black president for me, yeah, but you saw a whole lot more white presidents than I did, right? And it's just like, yo, you saw JFK die, you saw Martin Luther King die, you saw Malcolm X die, you saw Huey Newton, like, wow, you know what I'm saying? And for me now, again, carrying legacy and recognizing how life politics, living, like economics impact your everyday living, to know that she's lived through 76 years of life, and being able to see an image and watch her light up with the memory, and then possibly get like a whole new story that I never knew existed. So portraits are important. I look forward to when she finds images, or people give her images that she didn't know existed or she forgot about, because I'm gonna get a new story. And my mom was a character.
Mm-hmm.
She was a character, so it's pretty interesting.
Wow. So it's discovery of your own past sometimes.
Yeah,
As the pictures kind of emerge
absolutely.
out of the dark.
Yeah, because we meet our parents at the point that we are able, in my opinion, we meet our parents at our point when we're able to see them as humans, right? Because we see our parents as parents, and when you're young, they're just supposed to provide and give you things, and then you grow and you understand that now you have to start doing some of these things for yourself. And it's easy to be like, you didn't do or you didn't give, but they gave you all that they had. Potentially, maybe they didn't. For me, I can say my mother gave me all that she had, all that she could and knew to give me, and gave me the shoulders to stand on to understand, grow, and learn more, to even distribute back to her now as a 76-year-old, like thinking about technology. I bought my mom the iPhone, man. That was the funniest, most trying first few months of my life, first 3 months of her having that iPhone, because she's not trying to learn it. Like, she just thought, I don't really want to do this. Oh, and apparently when you get to a certain age, you can say that. And what you gonna do? Not help them? I'm gonna help you because you're my mama. But yeah, it's learning your parents and seeing your parents as people. You get to then snapshot or hear from them in the context of who they were as you were growing as a person, right? Teenage mom, I wasn't thinking about my mother as a teenager. I was just thinking of her as mom. Once I hit my 20s and so forth, I wasn't even really having those conversations with her. Later in my 20s, early 30s, we started having the conversations. And so now I get to have the conversations about teenage her, and then think about me and 20-year-old her, and think about me and 25. My mom was engaged 3 times. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, girl, I had 3 rings. I was like, she was like, I'm just saying, I had to make sure. That was funny to me. But it also freed me in moving in relationship, right? And recognizing, because my mom and my father were together 20 plus years. He passed away. She's never gotten remarried. Some people get remarried. I don't knock it. But the loyalty even that my mother has to my father this day is one that I'm just like, yo, that's crazy and amazing and loving. Because she was like, I can date these men, but this not, I feel like I'm cheating on your father. I'm like, Mama, he ain't here. She was like, yeah. But that's the commitment that I made. And even with him not being here, that's the commitment that I made. I'm just like, all right, woman. Well, I don't know if I could do it, so I salute her in that. Yeah, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, that's
Long time.
that's something else.
The 80s, nigga.
It's something else. You talked about your father, you talked about your mother, you talked about your family, you talked about your legacy and your name, and you talked about your sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
How has music, art, and writing helped you remember and kind of chronicle those experiences?
Music, art, writing. So I would call music and writing both art, right? Writing has been my release for as long as I can remember. Like, as long as I can remember. Like, it's the thing that when things were going completely crazy that I could do, that allowed me to look at what I was thinking. I had to get it out of my head, right? Music was the joy of my life. Like, my best memories in childhood with my family are attached to music. Um, and for me, art was in everything. It was in walking down the street. I feel like I was very blessed again, and maybe that's just the cultural influence. Colors. I enjoy colors and brightness. You wouldn't be able to tell by most of the things I keep around me. I keep neutrals, but I keep neutrals so that I can pop with color. Um, and I'm not as trusting of myself with like just splashing colors on walls. But if I was, I'd probably have really funky Caribbean colors that are attached to Caribbean. Like I tell people, when spring comes, be ready for the bright colors. I'm doing bright colors for the culture. I want some yellows and some pinks and some teals and some. If it's a bright ass color, I want it. So shaped my life. I say art has shaped my life because it brings color. It adds flavor. It allowed me expression. I did, I got to write for a little bit and display my writing. It was one of the first things that showed me reward. I used to participate in different oratory contests or poetic contests throughout school. And I say when things started going crazy because like my mother and my father separated when I was like 6. My mother left my father. We were homeless for a period of time. And even in moving from place to place, like I'd sketch and I'd write, and I just continued that as a point of release. So it's definitely kept me, and to this point in time, I think art is how we share our stories. Especially as like Black people and people of color, oral tradition, but also music, the written words that are given or aligned with melody, like it colors, it paints our stories, and the visuals that we capture, whether they're abstract or vivid and tangible, physical sculptures, whatever the art form, it captures a piece of experience, right? For us to kind of anchor in time. And I think the ability to anchor things in time adds to our ability to look back, learn, and move forward. Garner influence. Yeah, those things.
Is there any, and it kind of go back to my question earlier, is there a specific piece of art, music, or literature that you use to anchor you in an experience that is significant to you in the past?
Yeah, so Martin Luther, letters from the Birmingham jail. Was that Martin Luther King? Yeah, Martin Luther King's writings. Bayard Rustin's writings. I say that I live my life in this place of trying to find an intersection between all things that I love. And so looking at someone like a Dr. Martin Luther King, his use of influence and love to in my realm of life we call it change hearts and minds, right? To move people to the action of compassion. Dr. King was an artist in that regard. Bayard Rustin, he was a gay man. He was a strategist. He was a strategist, man. He helped shape a great deal of the efforts of the civil rights movement, and was a counselor to Martin Luther King. So to know a Black gay man, does it matter that he's gay? For me, hell yes, because I recognize that someone like me contributed to history in a way that wasn't focused on his sexuality, right? That was very true to life for him. It was a part of who he was. It wasn't all that he was. He did not deny it. He did not necessarily elevate it, but was still just as much of a contributor to the advancement of civil rights as Martin Luther King, and he also did it from the background. So I'd say that their writings together definitely inspired me. There are others. I mean, just from a creative standpoint, I am a Nikki Giovanni fan till I die, just because it's vivid. I love vivid imagery. I love anyone that can write a picture. If you can write a picture, I've probably fallen in love with your art in some way. I think I was talking to you about editorial photography. The what's this guy's name? The president's not 45, Barack, Pete Souza. Looking at his work, I love his eye. I love, big names. I love Gordon Parks. I love the capture in moment in time. Those are the artists that I look to. I like realism. I'm not opposed to abstract. I just probably, I'm not gonna be able to rattle off those artists that I remember from the time where I fell in love with it. But then, as photography became more visible and tangible for me, in the sense of knowing that there was a museum of photography, like as I grew in my knowledge around art, I began to kind of hone in on a flavor, if you want to call it. And so I like real depictions. I'm not a arts and scenery type person. I like everyday moments. I like captures of still imagery. I like knowing that there's a subject. I see the subject in emotion, in an action, and you capture the moment in time. And so for me, at this point, legacy, life, I hope that my everyday is a moment in time, and I aspire at some point to capture, pieces and elements of who I am, the intersections, to ensure that we're able to pass it on and that others know that our stories are long running and vast. The fact that I was able to learn about a Bayard Rustin, I think I learned about Bayard Rustin when I was 23, When was I ever going to learn about this? I learned about Martin Luther King as young as I can remember. Bayard Rustin, the gay man, and that's not all that he was, but because he was that too, and that's an identity that I share with him. To learn about him in my 20s, had I learned about him when I was 5, 6, 7, not to say I would have been doing more, but just the visibility is it lets you know that you belong in places, and that you can have a voice, and that you can also move change, create change. And those are the things that I think a lot of people that don't get to see themselves miss. The documentation of your greatness, like being able to document that you as an individual are great, because not only because people came before you, right? But there were people like you before that were also great. So getting away from the narrative that is fed to you about your inferiority or your inability or your position as a lower tiered second class person. And it's like, nah, I'm none of those things. I'm great. And history tells me I'm great. And because I was able to see it, because I'm able to point to it, I can touch it. Maybe not physically, but I can pick up this book and I can read it. Just makes you want to be bigger, makes you want to be greater, makes you want to show up for whoever gets to hear your story. And even if they don't get to hear your story, hopefully the work that you've put in has influenced culture or life in a way that they can reap the benefits.
Yeah, I like that. And you know, after
Liquor, so I can't pick that up and drink no more.
during this conversation, I actually was able to. You helped me visualize. You know what I'm saying, through your words. You know what ideally I think that would be a great representation of you, because you know one of the things with art is. One of the things with painting, and especially with a portrait, and if we pull from historically what portraits have been painted of famous people, and then we look at ways that you represent things symbolically.
Mm-hmm.
That tree that you were talking about,
Yeah.
symbolically, how that would fit into the scene of a let's say a home would be, you know what I mean, have kind of a shelf of pictures, and you can stack them in a way where they look like they belong in a house, just as a shelf of images, but the way that the order in which you put the images creates that hierarchy that
That's
you
dope.
wanted. You know what I mean?
That's dope.
And I vision this bookshelf with all these different books that you have of literature and art, the authors that you are significant that are significant to you.
Yeah.
And I just picture you in this house surrounded with the pictures of your family, surrounded by the books and the things that have kind of helped, you know what I'm saying, like really really identify some of your experiences.
Yeah.
The only thing, and maybe you could be more candid about this, is that I'm trying to figure out as far as like how you are, like how you're positioned in this. And that's something that, and I've known you for a
Position.
long time.
You want me to like
How
hold
would-
my
How
crotch?
would you be positioned? Because you being real quiet
I want a Diddy
and
bop.
soft smoking
Nah,
on this
nah.
stage, but I
Like-
know what you don't say. You are way more vibrant.
Well, the thing is, like I'm vibrant, but like in a portrait, I don't think I want any. I don't know. I think that's a motion picture. If I'm being honest, like, and not like full picture, but I feel like it's a motion, right? Like to capture, the what you see. You said I'm vibrant. Like to capture that, I think it's a continuous motion. I think when you capture me in still moments, you will see thought, you will see pause, consideration, calculation, and so when I think about a portrait, and I think about that being a moment in time, I think about when you think about a capture of a video, the milliseconds, right? It's like a millisecond. You captured it and you painted it. So in that moment, unless I'm in one of my like Diddy Bop moments when I'm being real grand or whatever, you might catch me on some like hi, or it just depends on what the moment is. That I learned that I just killed the deal, or I just acquired something that's gonna help me get further. It's gonna be it's praise, however
Praise.
you see praise.
I like that.
Hands in the air, like
I
Lord,
like that.
it's praise. It's a spirit of gratitude.
Yeah.
Like I
That's
am
definitely you.
I am gracious for the people that came before me. I am grateful for God taking me through everything that at one point in life I thought would break me. Like it would be like hands up for like consistent praise, just praise, spirit of praise. Yeah.
You see how we painted that?
I see.
You painted the whole
got
picture
it
just
there.
now.
You got me there to praise.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I was like, yeah, man.
Could you
that's
imagine
a-
seeing that hanging up, man?
God, I can't.
That'd be crazy. And
Man,
see how
'cause it's
motivational
dope.
it is when you see it every day.
Listen,
you're like,
it's,
oh
it's
my
as
God.
motivational as like opening up my door and seeing the Jackson Street Bridge like I used to. But if it's a praise look, it's also a reminder, like, Marvin Sapp, Praise Him in Advance, is one of my go-to kind of devotional songs. Like I've had my share of ups and downs, times when there was no one around. God came and spoke these words to me. Praise would confuse the enemy. So I started laughing. I started singing. I started clapping. People were laughing. Like they knew my struggle. They knew my pain. But I knew God would take it away. That's why I praise Him in advance. That's why I praise Him with my hands. Like, amen. Like, yeah, man. Like, so what? All of this stuff happened, man. This praise that I have right now, like this excitement, this journey that I'm on, where I don't even know where I'm gonna go, and I feel so comfortable in not knowing. Man, I just really want a church girl shout. You know what I'm saying? Like run around in a circle. You about to get the for real on the camera, but yeah, man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited, and the joy, man, the joy, the pain, but the joy. Oh man, I'm so like I get excited sometimes. Just like, yo, Lord, what is about to happen? Like, what I be talking to myself sometimes in the corner, like, yo, did you just lay that whole path forward? Like, I said I wanted this, right? But exceedingly abundantly is a real thing. Like, I just be like, yo, like, I couldn't even imagine that. Me and my homie was talking earlier, and we were talking about the God and his Google Earth view, right? Like the stuff when you think about all that you've gone through, and you think about all the things that you tried to plan to get to a point, or all of the things that you did thinking that that was the best route. And then when he decided that we were going to like step back and let God just like, look, Lord, that don't make sense to me, Lord, but I'm just going to follow. And then how the doors was just slinging open and walls was crumbling and like pathways were just really clear. The access, the opportunities, and you just be looking like, yo, so this is what alignment looks like. Like, just get out your own way. All right, God, that's good. I want to continue to make the God choice and not the good choice. And so gratitude is where it all starts.
You just dropping all these jewels, man.
No, that's my pastor. That's my pastor.
Like, I get back. She said something.
Listen.
And it was just like, I gotta write that down. You know what I mean?
Nah, the Mount Enon Baptist Church, Reverend Dr. Coates. Make the God choice, not the good choice. I wish I could tell you which sermon that was, but you want to make the God choice because it's a lot of good choices, a lot of opportunities that present themselves, but is it a good choice or is it the God choice? Is that what you're aligned to do? Is that how you're supposed to move? Because when we get in our own way, we make good choices. But when you make the God choice, man, the bombs blow up, doors open, cities, walls fall. Like, you be like, what? It was gold over there? I wasn't even looking in that direction. He's like, I got the Google Earth view. What you talking about? I'm up here.
Yeah, this is the God choice for me.
Yeah, man, you gotta do it.
I mean, honestly, it's just weird because I'm not used to really sharing emotions like this with people.
Oh, man, you gotta be vulnerable.
And you know what
Transparency.
I'm not really good at listening to people. I know that. It's my weakness. So
really?
now...
Not an active listener?
I am, but like, I'm so good. I'm so good for cutting people off in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah.
When I say that this is testing me because there's so many times I want to jump in and I'm like, shut up. Let people tell their story.
Yeah.
And I love it because I'm shutting up and I'm letting you tell your story.
You can still write down your questions, because active listening requires follow up, and you might have 17 more questions. And that's where, from what I understand, when you're making documentaries, the shit get hard. Because if you are an active listener and you're taking notes throughout the conversation, unless you're focused in on what you want your story to be, you can ask all sorts of shit because people drop seeds in every sentence.